Sometimes they really are just conspiracy theories. Sometimes they really are a person that just can't think anymore because they distrust everything. But other times they're true. And I'm talking about this today because now everyone's got UFOs in the brain. And I just think it's weird, as I said earlier, the government suddenly wants us to have UFOs on the brain. What's behind that? Well, my brain says to me, obviously, it's got to be power. And I remember having read an old conspiracy theory that I thought was the craziest one that I've ever read. And I still think it is incredibly far-fetched. And I'm not wanting you to take away from this that you should believe this conspiracy theory. No, I'm just asking you to play a little mind yoga. Because even if a conspiracy theory turns out to be false, you are better for having considered it. You are better for having had your mind bend like a pretzel. Even if it goes right back to its initial state, it is good for you to have flexibility when it comes to your thoughts.
If a bunch of Christians go missing, just know it wasn't aliens. Check this out.
What do you make of former U.S. intelligence official David Grush's statement at the House hearing stating that we recovered non-human remains from an alien craft?
Yeah, well, actually, if you read the Bible, this shouldn't surprise you. Because I think this is all part of a custom-tailored last days deception to explain away the very event that God says is next on his prophetic time calendar. And that event is called the Rapture of the Church. And that is when God evacuates all born-again Christians, takes them off the planet before the worst time in the history of mankind is thrust upon the planet. The Bible calls that time the 7-year tribulation. So if, in fact, that event is going to happen and you're going to see millions of people disappear and you're an enemy of God, then what would you be doing? You better be coming up with the best excuse you can think of to explain away why all of a sudden these people disappeared, and specifically and only specifically Christians. Well, believe it or not, that's exactly what we have with the alien deception. They're called aliens. I agree with that guy. They're non-humans, but I don't agree with their assessment that they are a higher evolved race of beings from the other side of the solar system or galaxy or whatever here to help us. It's a deception. They call them aliens. The Bible calls them demons. And they are right now being used to become the perfect excuse to explain away, hey, what happened to those people when all of a sudden they disappeared off the planet? And again, what should you expect if we're getting close to that event the Bible calls the rapture? Then you should see exactly what we're seeing in the news right now. And that is, for decades, we've known that the government and the governments around the world have completely denied any existence of aliens, alien crafts, whatever. A few years ago, you noticed that they immediately switched gears and they started saying, well, yeah, I guess there are some craft that we see out there that seem to be alien, not of indigenous to planet Earth. Now what you're seeing is the next step that you can expect, and they are now saying not only crafts, but these beings, these non-human beings are in these crafts. And they're starting to admit that now. And the reason why is because it's called soft disclosure, predictive programming. If you're going to use the alien UFO thing to explain away the rapture of the church, then you have to slowly work people up into that. And that's exactly what we're seeing right now. So I'm not surprised by it because I'm convinced it's the excuse to explain away what happened to those people that disappeared.
Do you think there is other intelligent life outside the Earth?
It seems probable, but I think this is one of the great questions in physics and philosophy, is where are the aliens? Maybe they're among us, I don't know. Some people think I'm an alien.
The public basically has been totally lied to. We're considered stupid or even moronic in some cases. The military's known about the alien question for the better part of 70 years, and they first saw their glimpse of what was going on as early as 1909 in the American Southwest.
And what this is the exact same thing Jesus warned us about, and he kept warning us about, and the prophets warned us about. They warned us, and there was always going to be one generation following the death of Christ that would have to deal with all the elements of this thing. As something people, well, a lot of people in this day and age, half of them are taken over by it. They don't know it. And it is something that when it rears its head, it's going to be too late for a lot of people.
If they do invade, it'll be more like Bambi versus Godzilla.
You get how that works?
Boot. So then how would we, I know it sounds implausible, but if something like this were to happen, how would we defend ourselves as a planet? We have to be prepared for the fact that they're going to overwhelm us in the opening shots of a war.
To recognize the Messiah as the Messiah is to boot all of those things out of your life, because their spiritual influence is here. You know, the book of Enoch gives a clear indication as to what they're doing. When their bodies were destroyed during the flood, their spirits, this is what it says in the book of Enoch, that their spirits would be in the earth and they would be known as evil spirits. Evil spirits. And they would seek to possess a person, to do war, to do battle. They make you feel careless in the flesh, like anything is permissible, it's no big deal. They take away conscience.
And Ike saw it, scared the hell out of him. He met the Anunnaki, that scared the hell out of him. So they're pulling our strings now like they always have.
I do really feel this in my bones, that we are right on the cusp of a massive transformation, an upheaval. And as I was saying to start this conversation off, I'm not saying it's all going to be pleasant, but it's going to have to be necessary. And, you know, I pray to God that we do everything we can to make it possible.
And it's going to hurt, and it's going to be painful. We're going to come out of this thing when it's all over with, totally different species. We're not going to be the same people we were in the past.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
First of all, angels can shapeshift. We know that the dragon, the enemy Satan, can appear as an angel of light, not his true form. The Greek word, and this was taught to me by my good friend and brother who's no longer with us, Russ Dizar. The Greek word is metaskismatasai. They have the ability to shapeshift and present themselves basically however they want to. Karen's handler, Karen Wilkinson, who we published her book, Stolen Seed, Evil Harvest. It's a must-read if you're into the alien abduction phenomena, because it's real. It's not demonic delusion. These people are taken. There is a breeding program that's going on. We talked about this in our fourth film, but then we link it later on in film number 6 on counter mutilations, and we show how they're inexorably tied together. But once again, I digress. So you've got fallen angels can shapeshift. They can appear pretty much as they want to. They can appear as your grandmother, your dead grandmother, if they choose to. Greys, the greys with the big heads and the almond eyes, there's no reproduction system that's there. They don't eat. So what are we looking at? In my opinion, these are avatars. They are essentially meat suits. They are biological constructs for the demons. What are demons? Demons are the disembodied spirits of the Nephilim. Let's back up. The seed of the dragon will be at war with the seed of the woman. So that's Genesis 3:15. That's the gateway to the rest of the biblical prophetic narrative. So the seed war erupts 3 chapters later. Fallen angels come down. We know that from the book of Enoch. 200 of them in the days of Jared on Mount Hermon. And by the way, Mount Hermon is Nephilim Central. That's where all the mischief, as Chuck Missler liked to call it, begins. That's the nexus. That's the starting point. So the Nephilim are the offspring of fallen angels and human women, creating a hybrid being known as the Nephilim. They were never supposed to be here. This is why the flood of Noah occurs. That's number one. So the Greys, let me back up. The Nephilim perish in the flood. They become the disembodied spirits which roam the earth, i.e. demons. How do we know that? The book of Enoch. Those of you who have an issue with the book of Enoch, I'll just say this. Jude quotes the book of Enoch. It was obviously widely read in the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd centuries. Jude's quoting from the book of Enoch. Is it part of our canon? Now it's not. But in the Ethiopian Bible, it precedes the book of Genesis. In my opinion, if you were going to keep one book from the people, you keep the book of Enoch. You're going to keep one book away from the people of the world. That's the book you keep out, because it tells you exactly what's going on. Fallen angels are coming down. They're grabbing the women. They're going into them multiple times. They're having children by them. These are hybrid beings known as the Nephilim. They are soulless. So you've got demons wandering the earth. They're earthbound. So what does the dragon do? The dragon knows that a demon, in order for a demon to manifest, has to inhabit a person, has to inhabit an animal or an object. So what does the dragon do? He creates the grays. It's a biological construct. It's an avatar. How do we know this? Because experiencers, people who have been on board the ships, including Whitley Strieber, talks about seeing the grays stacked up like cordwood, stacked up like chairs, okay? One on top of each other. And there is no reproduction system, as I said earlier. There doesn't seem to be a digestive system. So they're biological suits. They're expendable. I remember sitting down with the late David Flynn and talking to him about this, and he also agreed on that. So moving along, now you've got the Giant of Kandahar, all right? And the Giant of Kandahar, we don't know how old that thing is. According to the shooter and the eyewitnesses, the smell was so overpowering, people began to gag. It made them nauseous. So are we looking at a being that's 1,000 years old, 2,000 years old, 3,000 years old? And what about Bigfoot? So, Bigfoot, in my opinion, is a modern-day Nephilim. It's a hybrid. I believe that they are all have a nefarious agenda, in spite of what some people tell us. That's, right now, with the evidence I have, that's what I'm going with. There's a very nefarious agenda when it comes to Bigfoot and Sasquatch. They also have the ability to pop in and pop out. The Kandahar Giant allegedly have the same ability to bilocate from one place to another. Again, this comes from years of research, talking to whistleblowers, talking to people that have come up to me, and everything is very privy information. In other words, I can't divulge the source. But some of these people were embedded in special forces, and I'll just leave it at that. So let's walk through it. Fallen angels are fallen angels. They've come down and they create through grabbing the women and having sex with the women. Okay, and for some of you out there, you got a real problem with that. But that's what happens. They create a hybrid being known as the Nephilim. The flood happens. The Nephilim are wiped out. The disembodied spirits of a Nephilim are the demons that roam over the earth. Disembodied spirits, in order to manifest, need something to dwell in. A human being, a group of animals like the swine, where Jesus cast out legion from the man of the tombs, and they go into the swine, or an object. The Giant of Kandahar, in my opinion, may be thousands of years old. In other words, we know that there's a diaspora when Joshua and Caleb go into the promised land. Are we looking at the diaspora of giants? Afghanistan is not that far away from the Middle East. There is a cave system, allegedly, that is underneath this planet, and you can go from one part of the planet to another. That giant at Kandahar came out of a cave, and more about that later. So you've got the Nephilim, the disembodied spirits, which become the demons, the grays, where the demons can inhabit those biological constructs, those suits, and they can manifest in this dimension.
Hopefully a lot of Christians will go over the story of the fallen and make that story clear. Because if they don't, a lot of people are going to have formed opinions. In the month of June, July, let's just say the world's going to get an education. A real education. You know, a lot of people think they come from out there, right? And I say one thing. If I was a very intelligent individual and I came to a planet or a house and I looked into the house and everybody's screaming at each other, stealing from each other, beating each other up, I'm not going into that house. And they can't manage anything, I'm not going there. Why would somebody come all this way to peek around corners in the first place? That doesn't seem too intelligent. I think what people are going to learn are the three holes that are in the earth. And from those three holes, something very ancient has been there this entire time. And all three have been bound, right? All three cannot leave those holes. How they put $15 million worth of concrete to cover up all the channels going into the holes, but now the concrete is disappearing. How that the Pentagon will come out and begin to educate the public on what we're really dealing with. And they're going to have an objective to go from the month of June to December of that year to lay out a real narrative.
Aircraft assigned to U.S. Northern Command successfully took down a high-altitude airborne object off the northern coast of Alaska at 1:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time today, within U.S. sovereign airspace over U.S. territorial water.
Now we've entered into a time where people, unfortunately, they're going to have to start to well, let's just say their belief system is going to be altered. And then there's going to be a brand new gospel released to the entirety of the world. And that comes near the time of December and January, which will uproot if a Christian is not grounded. Kind of similar to the History Channel back in 2001 when they came out with that special and they kept saying that Jesus never died on the cross. And that shook a lot of people up.
Father, forgive them. They know not what they do.
After that was the year 1999, going into 2000. Church attendance dropped and everything else. And then what happened? We had 9/11 and church attendance went back up because people were attacked by an outside religion. And so that time, the History Channel, when they aired that documentary, church attendance was shaken. It was really shaken during that time. Well, it's about to happen again on a much deeper level with evidence, proof, and a whole bunch of other stuff. And this is going to really mess up those who are not rooted. Well, if they're not rooted in Christ for real, they can't play around with their Christianity, with their salvation. And no one should put anything off for tomorrow. But these things are coming out this year. They're not going to wait. You know, right now, I don't believe people are prepared. They kind of fall apart over the smallest things. What will they do when proof is shown of things that are contrary to what the Bible teaches? Because a lot of people, I hear them say the same things. Show me evidence and then I'll believe. Unfortunately, it's not going to work that way. Faith is very important because faith is beyond evidence and proof. That means if a person has faith, it exists within them in the very heart, and Satan can't tamper with it. But if somebody can prove to you that Jesus exists, then somebody else can prove to you that he did not exist. So these people looking after proof, well, this could be that part in the Bible when it says, you know, that day shall not come unless shall come a falling away first. That moment is sad, but it could be.
This is where we hold them. This is where we fight. And these shields, boys!
The moral to be drawn from this dangerous nightmare situation is a simple one. Don't let it happen. It depends on you.